There has been a lot of discussion around the new Wuthering Waves story. A creator most of you know, Saintontas, had a very harsh reaction to the 3.5 story.
Yo, if this guy's in my chat, permanently ban him. Is this guy regularly in my chat? Permanently ban him. The best introduction patch in the game? Dude, you're so stupid, it's unbelievable.
And the community's response was almost as interesting as the clip itself. But that is just one creator. I don't actually want to spend this video talking about just Saintontas. I want to talk about something much bigger. I think a lot of us have forgotten how to actually critique games. And no, you don't have to like every story or every update. You can hate it if you don't like it, or on the contrary, you could love it. That's completely fine. The problem currently with some people in the community is when opinions get presented as if they're critiques. So today, I want to talk about what criticism actually is, why context matters, why expectations can cloud our judgment, and why communities become worse when we start attacking each other instead of discussing the work itself. Before we start though, I just want to make one thing clear. I like Saintontas, I've watched his content for a long time, I simply disagree with some of his recent behavior, and criticizing someone's actions isn't the same as hating the person. But with that out of the way, let's talk about it. The first thing we need to understand is that opinions are not critiques. I love the story, I hated the story. Those are opinions. They're completely valid, but by themselves, they don't tell anyone anything useful. Good criticism doesn't start with whether you liked something, it starts with explaining why. Instead of saying the story is garbage, ask yourself, was the pacing too slow? Were the characters' motivations inconsistent? Did the dialogue become repetitive? Did the emotional moments actually feel earned? Now we're talking about something people can actually discuss. Someone may still disagree with you, but at least you've given them something concrete to respond to. That's what makes criticism useful, because a critique is simply an opinion backed by reasoning. Subjectivity and objectivity. This part now isn't as clear-cut as it could be, because now we're entering into a new territory, and that is objectivity and subjectivity. Games are art. Art is subjective. You're never going to remove your personal feelings from your criticism. That's okay. The goal isn't to become completely objective. The goal is to explain your reasoning. There's a huge difference between saying this story sucks and saying I didn't enjoy the story because the pacing didn't give the emotional moments enough time to breathe. Both statements are subjective, but only one actually explains itself. The next thing is context. A game shouldn't be judged in a vacuum. If you're talking about Wuthering Waves, compare it to previous versions, compare it to other gacha games, compare it to the expectations of the genre. Think about the realities of developing a live service game. Banner characters oftentimes just have to appear. Stories need to introduce future content, updates have limited development time. None of these things excuse weak writing. But understanding those constraints help us understand why decisions are made. Context doesn't remove criticism, it makes criticism better. Disappointment versus bad design. Now, here's what I think is one of the biggest mistakes people make. They confuse their own disappointments with bad design. Maybe you expected Scar to return since we were back to Shinshou for a bit. Maybe you wanted Yang to get more screen time. Maybe you expected the ending to go in a completely different direction. When those things don't happen, it's natural to feel disappointed. But disappointment doesn't automatically mean the story failed. The better question is, did the story accomplish what it was trying to do? Not, did it do what I personally wanted? Those are two completely different questions, and they often lead to two very different conclusions. But attention, I'm not immune to this. I myself have done this before. None of us are immune to it, because sometimes the problem isn't the story, it's the version of the story we had already written in our heads. How did we get here? Why does all of this spread so fast? It literally just took one day of the patch being out. Well, extreme opinions oftentimes spread very fast. And when the content creator that is considered the face of the Kurobots has a contrary opinion to that image, Well, you can imagine what happens. If someone says, the story is okay, nobody talks about it. But if someone says, this is the worst story Kuro has ever written, suddenly everyone has an opinion. Algorithms reward outrage. Communities reward certainty. Nuance usually gets buried. And before you know it, criticism stops being analysis and starts becoming entertainment. Critique the work, not the fans. And finally, critique the work, not the fans. The moment the conversation becomes, you're coping, only idiots think this, you're not a real Kurobot, the discussion is over. You're not talking about the game anymore, you're talking about each other. And that's exactly how communities become divided. Ironically, everyone usually wants the same thing, a better game. But instead of discussing the game, we start fighting over who has the correct opinion. That helps nobody. And the same applies to censoring people in your chat/comments that disagree with you. But this was why I think this conversation was worth having. Not because of one creator, not because of one story update, but because I think we can do better as a community. A healthy community isn't one where everyone just agrees with each other, because that's toxic positivity. But it is one where people can disagree without attacking each other, where criticism can be heard out and discussed among the community, where discussion helps everyone understand the game a little better. Imagine if you didn't understand part of the story, and you didn't even know about it. With these types of discussions, you can get to that conclusion through these conversations and can do that with class. Communities grow when criticism is judged by the quality of its reasoning, not by whether it's positive or negative. They stagnate when criticism becomes a competition over who's more right. So let me know what you think. Did you enjoy the story? Did you dislike it? And more importantly, why? I genuinely love to hear your reasoning in the comments. And if you're talking about spoilers, please mark them so everyone can join the discussion freely. So like, comment and subscribe. Join our Discord server. We are daily active. And thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.